Grace Potter, baby. Okay, here we go. Now, these are harder videos for me to make. It's easier for me to tell jokes. Man, it's hard to tell your story. You know, I think, what's her face? What's her name? Mama Angelou. She says there's nothing harder than holding an untold story in your heart. Man, I love Mama Angelou. You know, if I had a really good editor, I would be like, "What's up? Why don't you get a good editor?" And you could put that quote, Maya Angelou. It says, "There's nothing harder than holding a story in your heart." And you know, remember Anne Frank? Remember that little 14-year-old girl, little Jewish chick, and she wrote some of the most amazing literature. You know, and it's hard when you read Anne Frank's writing to realize that she's a little girl, she's a teenage girl, and I think on some level she was just telling her story, maybe because she knew she wasn't going to make it out. And you know, I got a story I want to talk about, and you know, telling that story and telling it in a constructive way and telling it in a way that can help people. And you know, the ego always wants to exalt itself. And so, you know, over this YouTube channel, man, I've gone through so many things and so many cities, and it started, you know, back in really in Lubbock, Texas, where I went hashtag MRA, and that's really when the heartbreak happened, and you know that story. And then I moved to Durango, taught myself to day trade, and you know, the whole time, you know, your heart's breaking because you know, I was one of those guys that, you know, we don't talk about those guys a lot, but those guys that lose their children in civil cases because of false allegations. And I saw the political system, I saw the legal system up front like I never have. You know, I saw it really as a white man. I saw what African Americans go through with discrimination, and I couldn't get Texas 2503 enforced, and it was really weird. I was kind of going down this rabbit trail, you know, this rabbit hole. You know, and literally there's a documentary called The Red Pill. It's a hashtag MRA documentary, and you know, I don't want to go into the value and the legitimacy of that movement, but I do want to talk about my own story and share it because we all look at things from our own perspective, and this is a video of perspective. And you know, and then eventually the trip took me to LA, and I was teaching at UCLA, and you know, this trip hasn't been all negative. You know, heartbreak, there's such value to it, I'm learning. And if I could kind of share my own story, and maybe you can look at your own story. Maybe you could use the Fibonacci story, and you're like, okay, I get it now. I get it. And look at the hero's journey. And a lot of times we think hero's journeys, especially if you were raised like I was, you kind of think it's all good news. But man, you know, this story has involved discrimination. I've lost my children. I had a home I lost in not bankruptcy, but I lost it in foreclosure. The hashtag MRA. I lost a business. This will be the second Christmas that I haven't seen my children. And then, you know, you just start seeing the world differently. And then I was trading, and then, you know, then I started to battle real legitimate PTSD issues, and never really knew what PTSD was until you experience it. You know, I like to say, you never know what an episiotomy is until you have children. And women try explaining to a man what an episiotomy is. Well, that's one of the challenges I face, is I have to share a story that uses words like homelessness, men's rights, and also just how I've learned how people see men. You know, I read a quote recently that says, when a woman loses her job, she's called a homemaker. When a man loses his work, he's called a failure. And I've had to, on top of all the financial issues and losing children and just going through that issue, realizing society and seeing friendships. And, you know, like, for example, let me show you a real life video. This is a video that I posted a long time in Kellogg Park, San Diego, baby. Fibonacci. I'm living in that parking lot and trying to explain what homelessness looks like to people who maybe never have even experienced that. And then, of course, when you go through challenges, you realize that when you're from a dysfunctional family, there's a reason why it's dysfunctional. And I remember one time I was in La Jolla and I was sort of filming some sea lions for my children, because one of the ways that I've passed the time of looking for work is when you don't have a job, you don't have a home, you're living in a parking lot. I started this YouTube channel, and that's kind of one ways that I've sort of have really tried to connect with people, and maybe my kids will see me in a good light, because maybe on some level, maybe this is sort of like my own Helen Keller thing, where sometimes I look at my life and I go, you know what, this story may not end the way I want it to, and then if so, what then? Well, my decision is to send light and love, and to bring light and love, and to bring a message of honesty and authenticity, maybe some jokes. But while I could talk about the good things, like for example, these are very related images here, because I was in San Francisco, and I joked on a video that I'm one of the most qualified people in the world to address homelessness, because I've actually been homeless, and right now I'm emailing or doing this from a friend's house in Colorado Springs, and I was catching pneumonia in Colorado because I was living in my truck, and it was starting to get about in the teens, and we had our first real storm, and then I finally just reached out to a buddy on Facebook, and I said, hey, I might need a place to live, and he opened his home to me, and what is that? Who's talking about that except Fibonacci? I mean, how many former homeless people have you ever watched their YouTube channel? And this has been my own hero's journey. And then I had to even, I got a story about sea lions, and I want to talk to you about the power of perspective, and one of the things that humans do to protect themselves with ego, but how the ego really lives in deception. And it's no joke. It's no joke. I was, let me just tell you the sea lion story. I was in San Diego. I was filming these sea lions, and it was really an amazing experience because I was around the beach, and it was still summer, so I hadn't really experienced the elements of nature. I've experienced financial elements. I've experienced losing a home and living in a truck, but when you're in San Diego, you don't really have to battle the elements, and that's why Los Angeles is the homeless capital of the world. It's because of the weather. If they had, you can live outside in LA, and that's why a lot of people are homeless. That's why LA has a dramatic. I think it's literally the leading homeless capital of the world, and it's the weather. And it was because I couldn't find a job because I didn't have a local driver's license. I never realized that having a local driver's license was such a barrier to employment. So I moved back to Colorado, and it just happened to be winter. And then boom, I caught pneumonia. And then I reached out to my cousin. I said, dude, you're going to have to give me a fucking hotel because I'm not sure I'm going to make it. And he was fortunate enough to hit me 2 weeks at a motel in Durango, Colorado. And for the first week, I literally just slept all day. But back to the sea lion story, because I want to tell this story because nobody's telling this story. San Francisco, LA, nobody's talking about homelessness. And who is it? It's men. And what are some cause and effects issue? And I can virtually guarantee you it's a lot of it has to do with our corrupt legal system and the way the legal system treats men in criminal cases. And in my case, it was a civil case. And that civil case took so much of my bandwidth and so much of my energy. I lost my business, and without a business, boom, 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 cause and effect. So back to homelessness. I was in San Diego, living in Kellogg Park, and I was filming some sea lions, and my mom, who weirdly watches this channel, but yet I'm homeless. It's a real weird dynamic. It's a mind fuck. And my family sees me in San Diego, and they think I'm like in a hotel, and they're like, but my mom saw that video, and it was the video where like a marine biologist was kind of doing like a tour, and she was given some information on what a pinniped is. If you remember that documentary, again, if I had a fancy editor, I would show that to you right now. And I remember my mom seeing that video, and because I was talking to a marine biologist, she had concocted in her mind that I had met her, we had fallen in love, And now I was living with her. And my mom says, "Oh, I thought you met somebody." And it was so fascinating for me because I learned how my mom shielded herself from reality with my story. And I had never seen that. So one of the things with homelessness that's hard to recognize is you really see things for what they are. You see people for how they are. And I saw that trick of how my mom literally concocted a reality that shielded her from reality. And even my brother's like, "Well, I see you in San Diego. You're in the most expensive part of the country." And again, I saw him do that trick. And so I want to encourage you today, the next time you see homelessness, listen for how your ego shields you from that reality. Do you attack that person? Do you judge that person? Do you concoct a fantasy? Because let me tell you something that I've come to learn. While mental illness is definitely a homeless issue, I think homelessness is the cause and the effects could be mental illness. Because there were times in my 5.5 months that I truly experienced my sanity straining. Again, I know this is kind of a serious video, and on this channel, I want to bring jokes. I want to bring all kinds of light and love, and I'm even posting some day trading videos. Now that I have Wi-Fi, I'm like, man, if I can use my life and help people make money with the markets because of what I've gone through, if I can bring light and love to you in that way, I'm going to do it. If I could tell some jokes. But here's another part of comedy. It's called truth is in jest. And when you have laughter, I think it's why I love laughter so much, is when you have laughter, you have honesty. And so while I want to bring jokes, I also want to bring some reality. So next time you see homelessness, listen for the story you're telling yourself. Listen for how you go, "Well, that shouldn't happen," or "that person should get a job." Well, when they apply for that job, do they have a phone to receive that call back? No. Well, then how do they get that job? Allow yourself that reality, and be careful that you don't do what my mom did, which is you sort of put this overlay fantasy story and then you believe it. All right, you guys be good. I promise you next time my jokes are going to be funny. But I can't go through what I've gone through with the hashtag MRA. I can't go through homelessness. I can't go through any of that without sharing my story. I mean, I'm Jonathan fucking Fibonacci, and there's a few things I know for sure. And that's one thing is I'm going to tell my story. You guys be good. Follow me at Fibonacci. If you're in San Francisco, LA, you would like a homeless consultant, a person who's going to really speak truth to your fucking reality. Fibonacci. You guys be good. Email me. And by the way, now that it's Christmas, if you see a homeless person, give them $10. I said one of the commitments that I made when I went homeless was that every homeless person was going to get at least $1. And if I had it, $5. But now that it's Christmas, give them $10. Don't assume that they have food. Don't assume that somebody else is going to come in. And then especially if you're not going to help, don't hurt them. The Hippocratic Oath says, do no harm. So if you're not going to help a homeless person, do not slander them. Do not harm them. Again, first, do no harm. That's the Hippocratic Oath. And if there's one place that we need to start with homelessness, it's two things. Number one is we need to be honest about that conversation and see that it's really affecting men. And it's a man issue. It's a man issue. And we need to look at our policies that hurt men in civil and criminal cases. And then we also need to go to the second one, is we need to first do no harm. And even the Bible says, be careful when you slander the poor. Be careful when you slander the poor. All right, you guys be good. Merry Christmas. Email me your thoughts, Americano417 @gmail.com.